It is as good as you work it to be.
I think a lot of people think that there's only one way to do it because most people have their way.
I was so confident because I knew how hard I worked in every deal I had done.
Selling real estate is 100% teaching.
You do want to choose your partner carefully because it's scary to bring somebody else on.
So you're telling me that you tripled your teacher salary your first year in real estate?
I absolutely did. Within my first 3 deals, I surpassed my teacher salary, which is amazing, but also sad on another note, but we'll stay with that for now.
Wow, that is amazing. And we're definitely going to get more into that later. I do want to talk about how we met, which is special. Yes, I know you and Erin as well as Miss Amy because you were our daughter's teacher and an amazing teacher at that. But I wanted to ask you, you're welcome. But I wanted to ask you what made you switch from a very wonderful career as a teacher suddenly to selling real estate?
So it's an interesting story. I taught for 20 years, many different levels, and I love teaching. I can remember being young and people telling me, you're not going to make a lot of money if you're a teacher. And it didn't matter to me. Like, that was my heart and my passion. My classroom was always my second home. I loved being in the classroom. And sadly, when I had Liliana, in my class, my mom got sick. And it was one of those situations where I had to take time off to care for her. And unfortunately, she passed very quickly. And once I went back into the classroom, I felt very different. My emotional energy that I brought every day to my students was very crushed because of what I had just experienced with my mom. And fortunately, summer was coming very quickly. And so I had some time off to really think about where I was going. And I've always been interested in real estate. And it's very funny because I feel like most agents will say to you, I love looking at houses and I love following the market. And ultimately, real estate has nothing to do with that. Of course it does to some extent, but there's really this whole other big component of it. So that summer, I kind of sat on it. I definitely talked it out with a few different people, and I took my real estate test. And I thought, I'm just going to have my license and I'll figure out what I'm going to do with it for now. And I went back to the next school year and I tried really hard to feel good in my classroom again and that I could bring what my students needed. And unfortunately, I couldn't get back there and it wasn't fair to my students. And I ended up switching over into real estate. Fortunately, the administration was fantastic. The parents I had at that time were amazing and supportive. And I decided to take the leap in January of the following year. And it was very exciting.
Wow. So real estate for you wasn't, showing these beautiful houses, always looking fantastic with all these amazing clients right from the beginning?
No, it absolutely wasn't. It was after a 20-year career of teaching. So it was different for me. It was a different transition, but I loved it. I'm very happy.
I can imagine. And I can imagine that it was really hard for you. I'm so sorry that what happened with your mom. I'm sure that it was really hard for you to not only deal with that, but also completely transition to a new career from nothing. So I think a lot of the listeners can really relate because a lot of women have to reinvent themselves constantly. So what would you say was like the number one thing that you would recommend to someone who is completely switching careers from like A to Z?
I think the biggest thing is trying to learn as much as you can around the career that you're going into. I think you have to find a mentor in that field who you trust, which is sometimes difficult because you're not sure because it's so out of your wheelhouse. But if you can find a mentor to sit down with, break bread with them, plan phone calls weekly, ask them for suggestions on either podcasts to listen to, books to read, or even other people they know who they think may be helpful for your start. It's imperative because without a mentor, starting over in a new career is almost impossible.
Agreed. So how
Yeah.
did you go about finding that mentor?
I had, ironically, I was about to sell a property we had, and I was using somebody I knew who was actually my friend's husband. And he and I were speaking a lot in this process of listing my property and so on. And he actually said, you'd be great in this business. And he said, I have somebody I want you to talk to. And it was his broker, which turned out to be my first broker and was a true blessing to my business. And so when I sat down with him, he almost assessed my personality. He was very excited I was a teacher. I will tell you that because he's like, teachers are so organized and used to having a schedule and all these things. But he really looked at who I was as a person and was able to say to me, there's a million ways to skin this real estate cat. You have to figure out how you are going to run your business. And he said, my suggestion would be is you work with the people you know. You have been living in this community for your whole life. You have been a teacher for 20 years here. People trusted you with their most sacred person on the planet for how long? These are people who already trust you. So work with that. And I thought, okay. And in that, as I'm on the other side of real estate in 4 years, almost 5 years now, I realized what he was saying is I don't really have leads for you. So you're going to have to figure out how to build your business. And I'm very grateful for that because my business can sustain now without relying on somebody handing leads to me. And for that, I'm forever grateful to his advice and his mentorship on how to go about doing that.
Yeah, that was great advice because I think a lot of people think there's only one way to do it because most people have their way. But like you
Yes.
said, there's 20 ways to skin a cat. So
Yes.
I would love for you to talk about more what you think sets you apart in your real estate business, because I know that you do a lot of things in your own special way.
I do, for sure. And I think the first thing I did was really gather everyone, my sphere of influence, which you'll hear a lot of people call it, or building a database, which I did, but I was very intentional about it. I did the hard work and it was hard for me because you feel like you're selling something. But the reality is once I started doing deals, I knew how much value I had brought to the table. I learned from agents on the other side, kind of the do's and don'ts, what I wasn't really impressed with and wouldn't want my clients, to have to go through. But I also took from them too. And I knew when I was asking somebody, hey, if you were to refer, your friend or family member to somebody, a real estate agent, who would it be? And most of the times they're like, I don't really know. I don't really know. And I'm like, well, I would really like to be that person for you. And it's really putting yourself out there to ask that. But I was so confident because I knew how hard I worked in every deal I had done, what I brought to the table, always going the extra mile. Customer service was really important to me. And there are some agents and brokers who would say, you don't need to be doing all that. But that's what felt really good to me and made me really enjoy this job because I was bringing every client my 100% best that I could. So I think cultivating my database, really asking them, can I be the real estate agent that you would refer to your friends and family? And nurturing that with phone calls and popping by with little gifts. And we do a newsletter and send information and really just talking to them and being there for them. Another key thing that I did was I had a list of vendors. My clients, my database knows if you need something in this area, it doesn't even have to be house related. Call me. If I don't know, which I'm happy to always say I don't know, but I can figure out a way to help you or find something you need. And our database really does that. They will call, even for school advice. It's really funny. They're like, we're not sure who to reach out to. What do you think about this school or what, And I really pride myself on my business looking like that because I do want to be helpful in our community. It is a small community and I have been here my whole life, with the exception of college. I went away for years, but I came right back here. So just nurturing my database, letting them know I'm here to help them with anything they really could possibly run into within our community, keeping them up to date on the market, especially here. I had someone tell me once the real estate market is as local as the weather. So a lot of times people will call and they will hear the national news and somebody talking about real estate on a national level. And it's like, well, we're in a really unique space here in South Florida. It's a little different, and teaching them, which is also a blessing because I do feel like I still am teaching just much bigger kids now than when I was a teacher. So I really enjoy that part of it too. There's still an educational component on so many levels. And again, just being available to them when they find themselves in a situation, always here and ready when they know somebody who is ready to buy or sell, and providing the best service once they do. It was kind of a running joke. All my friends were like, I'm glad you're doing real estate, but I don't have any plans on selling my house. And I'd be like, well, my business plan isn't exactly to get rid of everyone I know, have everyone move. That would be a really bad business plan. But my business plan is to hope that you would trust me to help out, your friends and family.
Yeah, I got a lot of great points from that. And one of them was like, you're not being salesy if you have the confidence knowing that you're going to do the best job for them. If they don't go with you, they're going to go with that schmageg over there and they're not going to get the best service. So I think that's awesome because a lot of people are afraid of coming off too salesy, but you're actually doing them a huge service and adding so much value. Exactly. And the other thing I got was that you're always like over adding value, just like over the top, because that's what feels good for you. And that really is where all the referrals come from.
Definitely. I have a few clients who I've talked out of buying properties and they're like, what are you doing? You're talking yourself out of a commission. And I'm like, but this isn't, my opinion is this isn't the best thing for you to do right now. It's either a wait and see, find another property. And, sometimes they'll take my advice and sometimes they still pull the trigger. And then I hear about it 2 years later that maybe, but it's not about the check at the end of the day. It's really about, it's obviously lovely and needed to, support life, but it's really about looking out for somebody in a space that they aren't necessarily the most educated in because they're not in it.
Right. And I think that's one of your superpowers is being a teacher because selling real estate is 100% teaching. You have to educate them. You have to try to help them make the best decision possible. And like you said, they're not always going to listen. But if you're coming from a place of contribution and value, you're always good with yourself. You're always like, I did my part.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. So I also wanted to ask you, because I know that you have had a partner. You've known her since the 6th grade. So I think she's amazing. I think she is also a key part to your success. So what would be your advice or maybe some information about how you guys work together with a partner?
So it's interesting. Like you said, Eden and I have known each other since 6th grade. And we have always worked on things together. So we know we work well together. We also have a friendship, and this is very unusual. And I'm very grateful and aware that this is not the norm. We can tell each other things like, hey, I love you, but, and it's accepted with no ego. She has put me in my place plenty of times with the respect of looking out for me and showing me a different side. And I think that's really important. It's not always like that. I've seen other teams work together, but this is my experience. So working with her, it's very interesting because I started doing this, and Eden was also a teacher, and she was still teaching, but I would tell her about every deal. Anything, something always goes wrong in a deal, whether the client, you keep it from the client so they don't have to worry about it or not. Something always goes wrong. You learn something in every deal. And I would talk to her about it and talk to her about it. And I finally said to her, I think you're my person you need to do this with me. And her contribution is she had a whole nother set of friends and people in the community that she knew, and we were able to combine. And most people we know, if you hear Eden, you kind of think Amy. And if you hear Amy, you kind of think Eden. So it was a very natural partnership for us. People were a little like, are you sure you want to get into business together? And it wasn't even something I could explain to them why I knew it would work. It's a feeling I've had about her always, and the feeling has always been reciprocated. So choosing a partner for me was very easy. She and I are definitely the yin and yang. I'm a little more reserved. She's super expressive. And I think you know that dynamic very well yourself. So, yes. We work very well off each other. We both have children. They are a priority. We have totally built this little group of just the two of us, pretty much being moms, and helping each other out and helping our families. And it's been a really great experience, but you do want to choose your partner carefully because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, as you know, and you really want to have someone you trust. And I trust her. I can walk away and let her do everything and never think twice. And it's super important to have that trust for sure.
100%. I know.
Yeah.
But like you said, yes, because everyone has their skills, and like Erin has a completely set of different skills than I have. There's no doubt in my mind, and it took me a long time to admit this, but there's no doubt in my mind that we would have never gotten to 200 deals without me, because the salesperson is very sexy, is very charismatic, but I had to be like, no, there's no way you could have done that without an operations person in the background. So do you guys split up like sales and operations? Do you just both do sales and have an operations team? Like, how do you guys structure your team?
Okay, so this is interesting. So we were doing it alone, just the two of us, and it kind of worked out. However, the referral came in for us, whoever was available at the moment to either make the call or take the information, that kind of became their deal, their baby, right? But the other one of us was always there assisting or doing whatever we needed. And then it got to a point where we were like, we need to spend more time at cultivating our database, and all this logistical stuff behind the scenes is taking away too much time from that. So we hired our other best friend from 6th grade to be our transaction coordinator. So logically, right? Because who else do you hire? And of course, her name is Amy too. So she, goes by Other Amy. It's actually her email, otheramy@amyrealtygroup.com. And she is, I say this lovingly, the type A among the three of us. She is super organized. She started out as transaction coordinator. She has become director of operations. It's really what she does, because now she does many things, including keeping us on our toes. Like, she's the one behind the scenes saying, these are the calls you need to make this week. This is what you need to be doing. And she is on us. She is almost our personal trainer, if you will, on top of us, telling us what we need to do. And we really needed that so badly, because there's so many components to real estate. And if you try to do them all on your own, you can never grow. it's virtually impossible. There's only so many hours in a day. And she created so many systems behind the scenes. And I mean, she put them all in Google Docs and spreadsheets. And when I look at them, I mean, it's like looking at Japanese. I could figure it out if I really took the time. But for her, I mean, she flows through things seamlessly. And we are very grateful that we took the leap, because it's scary to bring somebody else on, and I think a lot of agents get very nervous, and we were nervous. I mean, it took us a good 6 months to really bite the bullet and bring her on. And it was by far the best thing we did for our business. Immediately we saw a difference. So I highly encourage,
of course,
you need people behind the scenes. I feel like we were good at it. We didn't hold a candle to what she does for us. I mean, it's unbelievable. So finding another person you really need to trust in hiring and adding to your team is the only way you can grow more deals in a year, in my opinion.
Mine too. And the cool part is that because she loves that so much, it's not like work to her. She enjoys all of those spreadsheets. I can attest to the same thing. If Aaron looks at my spreadsheets, his eyes cross. But for me, that's like my comfort place. Like, everything is so organized. So you have to find the person that actually fits that role, and they'll be happy there. And you'll be happy not ever looking at that again.
Exactly. You almost feel bad when you're not that person and you're asking somebody to do that. It's kind of like, oh, I can't believe I'm at, and but she's like, yeah, no, I know what I can do. I can create this 15-point system and everything will flow automatically and smoothly. And it's like, okay, but that's her happy place and she loves it.
Exactly.
Loves it.
So do you guys have anyone else on the team besides other Amy that helps?
We, no, other Amy is really like our entire support system. And we're always saying to her, tell us when you decide you need somebody, because at some point she's going to need somebody. It's probably going to be really hard for her to admit that, because she's like, I got this all. But she constantly tells us, like, you guys, the systems I have in place, like, I'm okay. Like, this works for now. I think as we grow and hopefully start attracting agents, that we will need more people on the outside. Of course, we have a professional photographer who we always use. We have a stager who we use. But on our immediate team, we only have another agent who works with us. Her name's Allie. But no other support system at all. There's just other Amy for now.
I think that's great. I think if your systems start breaking down, you'll realize, oh, okay, it's time. But it's always great to lead with revenue. Like, as you grow, you have extra revenue, then it's time. Okay, we can actually invest this back in the business and it's going to grow even faster. So I think that's a great strategy.
Thanks.
So last thing I want to really ask you about, because you did have a really great relationship with your old broker, and you decided to move over to EXP with Elite Builders, which we're so happy about. But I just wanted to ask you why you did that, what you're looking for in the future. Like, what do you see as your vision moving forward with EXP?
Okay, so this was really hard for us. We, as you know, have a great relationship with our old broker, and we weren't even really looking to leave. It was one of those things where you hear something and you have to know a little more, and that's exactly what happened. I honestly was watching you and Gabriella and your funny TikToks that are funny, but there's real information in those, and you start wondering, like, where is this coming from? And that's exactly what happened. And I started researching EXP because I'm just a person who has to know. I may do nothing with the information, but I want to know the information. And there were all these different avenues that I hadn't even really thought about. You only know what you know until somebody shows you something else, right? And so when I started researching EXP and just when I say research, let's be serious. I was watching a TikTok here. I was coming across a YouTube video there. I started thinking about, okay, so there's health insurance that's different. It's all virtual. There's no office. Well, that's weird. And then you start thinking a little further, like, well, why do I really need why are there offices anyway? All these little things start chipping away that you start thinking about. And I had coffee with Gabriella, which your poor puppy got sick and you missed that. And I started asking her little questions, kind of, I told her my interest has been piqued. What more can you tell me? And I let her really tell me the benefits that she saw and what she thought and her side of things. And she said, you know what, let's get you on a call there. And that call with Erin was like, whoa, like, I feel like we always all say this. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay. And this was all happening in probably a 2 to 3 week period. It wasn't like this long 6 month. And Eden and I talked it over and we were like, it is as good as you work it to be. It's not like everything's going to fall in your lap. You have to make a commitment. Okay, this is important to me. I would like this to be my end game. I'm going to start developing this part of it, and that would be like the agent attraction with the rev share and things like that. And I couldn't unsee it once I saw it, and either could Eden. And as difficult it was to go to my broker, who I love dearly, and tell him, I just had to let him know this was the best opportunity for me. This was the best opportunity for Eden and my family moving forward.
Well, 2 things. One is that your broker could still come over because they're all going to come over eventually.
I wish he would.
You never know. And 2, I think that's really exciting that you actually got the first thought watching our silly TikToks, because sometimes you think like, no one's watching this. This is silly. But media is so powerful. Is just putting yourself out there, even though at first you suck. Like, this is my first podcast. Maybe I'll look at it from a year from now and say, wow, that was horrible. I don't think so.
Podcast too. So we're in the same boat.
We're getting out of our comfort zone. We're doing something, to get information out there. That's all it's about. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. So that makes me really happy, because when you start putting stuff out there, of course, the doubt starts to set in. Is this, it's not as good as Erin's, or all of those thoughts. So it's just a testament to, it doesn't really matter. Just start. And I do believe there is some information in here that will help somebody, even if it's one person. Great. Let's empower other people. What feels better than that? Nothing. Exactly. That's the point. The purpose of the podcast is just to really highlight powerful women, and also learn from them. I know that I don't know a lot. Like, I can learn from everybody something. So if it doesn't, if it reaches one person and somebody learns something, then it's worth it.
Correct. And I also think I was going to just say, we're just normal women. We're just moms. Like, we are powerful in what we do, but this isn't that difficult. You can still be you. I'm still the mom who's driving from, practice to training to school, just like you. But we're still running a whole business and building a business for ourselves and our families. It's totally possible for just a regular mom to do this. And I love that.
Me too. It's so amazing. And I love being a part of it. It really has been such a pleasure talking to you. I just want to end it asking if there's anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up.
I I think we're all on this journey to figure out life. And I think a lot of times we don't trust ourselves. We have a feeling that we can do something. And like you said, those doubts start setting in. And I think if you just break past that, you will be so shocked at what you can accomplish, truly. So for all the moms out there wondering if they need to start a new career or how they can change something for their family, like I said, we're just everyday people who took a chance. And I encourage everyone to take that chance.
And how would someone reach out to you if they have any questions or anything like that?
Oh, that would be awesome. I would love to hear from anyone who had any questions. You can reach me. I have my email address would be probably best, and it's Amy at the letter and the letter E, realtygroup.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at your AE group.
Awesome. Well, once again, such a pleasure. I'm sure we're going to do this again at some point on your podcast. Hint, hint.
Yes.
And I look forward to growing together as Elite Builders.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Carla. I really appreciate being here.